Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Thanks for tuning back into another episode in the series and part two of this little mini series about the MVVM architecture that we're going to be covering here. So, in the last video, we went over and kind of discussed on a high level what we were trying to do. Talked about this this documentation here and this little diagram that Google supplies to us to kind of I guess, separate different layers of our application. And so we're just going to go ahead and jump right into a little bit of code here. So please like, comment, and or subscribe, especially subscribe if you are interested in the rest of this little series here and what's to come after this. So I'm just going to go ahead and close some of the non-relevant files right now. I'm just going to take a look at our project here. Everything, there's not too much, there's a few packages in here, but there's nothing too crazy about some super deep nesting of packages and whatnot. But I am going to go ahead and just create another package here just to separate some things. We're just going to call it Arch for architecture. We're going to create the two components that we need. So we're going to go ahead and call this we will call it the attractions view model. Make that a class, and then we're going to go ahead and also create the attractions repository. I can spell it. There we go. And make that a class. Inside of our view model here, we're actually going to go ahead and extend view model. That is a part of the Android X lifecycle package. And we are going to create a private variable here called repository, which equals our attractions repository. The idea here between the view model and the repository is that the only way to access the repository is through the view model, right? So the activity itself, the fragment itself, the view layer should not have access to the repository. And if you were to think about the repository as your networking, in and out from your application, right? So all of your network calls they're going to have to be defined somewhere, but where they actually get kicked off, where they get invoked, where you end up receiving the data, etc., is going to be inside this repository class. So this class will handle that aspect of things. Then the view model actually interacts with the repository to actually have it, communicate or fetch the data that it needs. And then the view model will post live data to whoever's looking at it at the view layer. So if you see here, we're following that paradigm in the sense that the activity or the fragment is not directly connected to the repository, nor the remote data source, nor the onboard database. It is connected to those different aspects of the system via the view model class. So again, it just kind of keeps things away. It keeps things separated, and it just continues to say, or to further the point that the activity in the fragment or the view layer should only be concerned about the view, displaying the correct view based on the data, and then let the view model and the repository, do their respective actions to make everything come together. So we're going to go ahead and just do before we do that, we're going to go ahead and just add the view model here. Let me think for a second. So we're going to, instead of creating the attractions list here, we're going to create an instance of the attractions view model. So let's just call it, because we only have one, we're just going to call it the view model, but normally you would call it a little bit something else, a little bit more meaningful. Attractions view model, we're going to say by activity, sorry, not by activity, by view models, just like that. And so this by view models thing is again part of the Android X activity package, and it really is kind of, or handles, I guess, the creation of the view model scoping it to a particular hierarchy within the app. So scoping is something that we haven't really talked about, I guess, explicitly, but we have worked with it in a sense that, going back to the discussion we had in the last episode, the attractions list here that exists in this activity is actually, scoped at the activity level. It's clearly here, and then the fragments, the children screens of this activity reference the this content here. So the data itself for the home fragment or for the attraction details fragment is not scoped within the life cycle of the fragment, right? As we go from a home fragment, which has the list of our it has this list here. When we navigate away from this list into the detail fragment, the whole list doesn't go away, right? It's still stored at the activity level. It's just we're in a different screen now, so we're just accessing a different point of it. So we've kind of dealt with this idea of scoping a little bit without explicitly talking about it. So I guess just know that our attractions list currently is scoped to the activity level, and we're going to continue that motto of having things scoped to the activity level because we need a central location that you can call home to both of these screens, right? Otherwise, you would have to be passing the legitimate data from this screen, or sorry, you'd have to be passing like this entire object here that is displayed here. You'd have to pass it to this screen so that it had the information to display all this information. So since we have things scoped at a more global level to both of these fragments, we can kind of alleviate some of that data passing and notification of like, hey, this is the entire object versus this is just the ID of the object, and so you can fetch it on your own. So anyway, we're going to continue with that motto, and then by essentially setting your variable to be the type of view model, and then calling this by view models on it, it will just create this view model here for you, scoped to the correct activity. Let it be known that you can go ahead and just create an instance of this object here, but it's not the proper way to do it. It doesn't, I guess, have all the benefits that it should have if you go ahead and create it via this little extension function here. And as you can see here, it comes up with like a whole factory and ends up creating the view model for you the proper way so that everything is kind of retained and that the data is present when you're there or when you're looking at it for the first time, when you're looking at it for the last time, and so you don't have this issue of referencing the incorrect object and all that kind of stuff. So it's really straightforward, it's very simple. So just go ahead and use this little extension function that they have there. It'll keep everything proper the way that you want it. And then inside here, we're going to end up transitioning our data over here. So that is a preliminary introduction to what we've done so far, right? So we've created the view model, we've created the repository, it mimics this motto here, and then we have our view model class within our view layer, a reference to it, so that we can actually start to access all the goodies that are going to be in this view model and then eventually down in this repository layer. So I'm going to take some time to go over each of these in future episodes, so we're going to keep this short, and this is really just the initial setup and everything that we need to start down this path. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the video here, and we'll catch you in the next one where we're probably going to go ahead and talk about the repository class first. So hope to see you there.